You're watching live from New Delhi on DD India's News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Sakal Bhattan. Coming up in the next hour, President of United States and China are holding talks on trade, Taiwan and fraught relations. Biden-Xi meeting on sidelines of APEC Summit. Israeli forces carry out operations in self-defense against Hamas in Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital. UN fuel shipment enters the enclave from Egypt. ASEAN defense chiefs meet in Jakarta, call for end to Myanmar crisis and Israel-Hamas conflict. Williamson and Mitchell resurrect New Zealand's innings in the World Cup semi-final clash against India underway in Mumbai. Virat Kohli and Iyer score centuries to set 398-run target. On top of the show, in what could be seen as a big tribal push, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced several schemes worth rupees 50,000 crores for the welfare of the tribal community across India. And while addressing a mega rally in Indian state of Jharkhand, Indian Prime Minister highlighted the contributions made by the tribal community towards the nation building. Here's a report.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi, on the occasion of the birth anniversary of Lord Birsa Munda, addressed a mega rally in Jharkhand's Khunti district. During his hour-long speech, the Prime Minister highlighted the contribution of the tribal community towards nation building.
संघर्ष के प्रतीक भगवान बिरसा मुंडा की गाथा हर देशवासी को प्रेरणा से भर देती है। झारखंड का कोना-कोना ऐसे ही महान विभूतियों को उनके हौसलों और अनथक प्रयासों से जुड़ा है। अनेक वीरों ने इस धरती का गौरव बढ़ाया है।
During his visit to Jharkhand, the Prime Minister also announced several schemes worth 50,000 crore rupees for the welfare of the tribal community across India and for the development of Jharkhand. He also laid the foundation stone for several road and rail infrastructure projects in Jharkhand.
अभी 50,000 करोड़ रुपए की अलग-अलग योजनाओं का उपहार मिला है। आज झारखंड में रेलवे इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर और कनेक्टिविटी के विस्तार के तहत कई रेल परियोजनाओं को शुरू किया गया है। आपको ये जानकर खुशी होगी कि झारखंड भी देश के 100%, 100% इलेक्ट्रिफाइड रेल रूट वाला राज्य बन गया है।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi highlighted the role of women towards the nation's development. He highlighted the need to augment 4 pillars: women, youth, farmers, the middle class and the poor, for the development of the nation. The Prime Minister spoke about how Jal Jeevan Mission has already covered 70% of the population.
The Prime Minister's almost an hour-long speech showcased his concerns about the welfare of the tribal community. In Khunti, Jharkhand, the Prime Minister was addressing thousands of people on the birth anniversary of Birsa Munda, from where he also announced mega schemes for the welfare of the tribal community for not just Jharkhand but also across the country. The Prime Minister also spoke about women-led development in the country and also how his government is trying to ensure holistic development of all the people across the country. With camera person Ramakant Sharma, this is Dibyendu Mondal reporting from Ranchi for DD India.
And a nationwide outreach program was also launched by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Wednesday, aiming at ensuring a saturation of the centre's flagship schemes in at least 2.7 lakh panchayats by January 25, 2024. Through this mega scheme, Indian government seeks to ensure the last mile delivery of these welfare schemes and its benefits. Here's a detailed report by DD India's Dibyendu Mondal.
To mark the occasion of the birth anniversary of Lord Birsa Munda, Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited his native village of Ulihatu in Jharkhand. The PM paid floral tributes to the tribal leader and met with his family members. Prime Minister Narendra Modi then went on to address a mega rally at Khunti district in Jharkhand. He announced mega schemes for the welfare of tribal community. The PM announced schemes for the tribal groups that live in the far-flung areas. The scheme will benefit the untouched tribal communities across the country. It aims to provide electricity, road, internet, drinking water, schools and sanitation to the tribal communities.
सामाजिक न्याय का भरोसा तभी मिलता है जब सबको बराबरी से, समान भावना से सरकारी योजनाओं का लाभ मिले। और इसी सोच के साथ अब आज से विकसित भारत संकल्प यात्रा शुरू हो रही है। इस यात्रा में सरकार मिशन मोड में देश के गांव-गांव जाएगी। हर गरीब, हर वंचित को सरकारी योजनाओं का जो हकदार है, उसके हक के लिए उसको लाभार्थी बनाया जाएगा।
Not just this, the Prime Minister also announced the Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra from Jharkhand, where the government will go to the doorstep of the people to provide them with benefits of the government scheme. This also aims to connect the left-out people with the government-sponsored schemes.
अब आज झारखंड की इस पावन भूमि से एक नहीं बल्कि दो ऐतिहासिक अभियानों की शुरुआत होने जा रही है। विकसित भारत संकल्प यात्रा सैचुरेशन के सरकार के लक्ष्यों को प्राप्त करने का सशक्त माध्यम बनेगी।
The PM also announced the 15th installment of the PM Kisan Samman Nidhi, which provides financial assistance through direct benefit transfers to the farmers in India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also dedicated to the nation projects worth Rs 7,200 crores for infrastructure development and building of educational institutions.
Hundreds of people from nearby villages have come down to the Ulihatu village in Jharkhand, which is the ancestral home of Birsa Munda on his birth anniversary, to mark and pay their respect. Even Prime Minister Narendra Modi earlier in the day had come to his ancestral home here and paid respect to Birsa Munda, who is considered as one of the tallest of the tribal leaders in India. With camera person Vinod Ojha, this is Dibyendu Mondal reporting from Jharkhand.
The other news, the much-anticipated meeting between US President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the APEC Forum in San Francisco takes the center stage at this year's APEC Forum, which seeks to reduce friction in what many see as world's most dangerous rivalry. The leaders of the world's two largest economies have known each other for over a decade now and have shared hours of conversation and 6 interactions since Biden's January 2021 inauguration. But they have met only once in person since then. We get you more as to what to expect.
US President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping are in San Francisco holding talks on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit. It's Xi's first visit to the US since 2017, and it will be the two leaders' first in-person one-on-one talks since November 2022. With stakes high on both sides, US President Biden set the positive tone for the overall agenda of talks between US and China.
To get back on a normal course of corresponding, being able to pick up the phone and talk to one another if there's a crisis, being able to make sure our militaries still have contact with one another. As I told you, we're not trying to decouple from China, but what we're trying to do is change the relationship for the better.
The 2023 APEC ministerial meeting opened in San Francisco earlier on 14th November, with a focus on creating a resilient and sustainable future. Interconnectivity, innovation, strengthening inclusiveness are the 3 priorities outlined by the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken. APEC trade and foreign ministers deliberated upon new measures to advance sustainable, equitable and inclusive growth in the region. But what takes center stage are talks between two adversarial superpowers on critical fronts like military conflict, drug trafficking and artificial intelligence, to name a few. Sakal Bhatt's report, DD India.
And DD India correspondent Kate Fisher joins us from Washington, D.C. to tell us more about what is to be expected. Hi, Kate. Good evening. Well, it's good morning out there for you. A lot of focus on the Xi-Biden meeting on the sidelines of the APEC forum, notwithstanding the intense rivalry, which is, many would say, veering into conflict. So, looking at the expectations built up, what are the critical areas their conversation can revolve around?
Well, when we look at the expectations, the White House has made it very clear that their expectations are low. You heard President Biden there literally saying that he wants to make sure that the relationship gets to the point where he can simply call President Xi Jinping. So that is one of the main aims, to make sure that these two countries can communicate with each other once again. And other than that, there aren't that many expectations coming from this meeting. The idea, the White House says, is to ensure that this competition does not tip over into conflict. They say that intense competition requires intense diplomacy, and they will be trying to make sure that those lines of communication are reopened, as well as trying to see what few areas of compromise and cooperation they can find.
All right. Having said that, like you also mentioned, that White House has made Biden administration's intent clear, that they are looking for some specific outcomes, and they also hope to see progress in terms of re-establishing military-to-military ties with China, a very sort of positive agenda setting. What would you like to add on to that?
Yeah, that's right. That is one of the things that the US says it really wants to see achieved during this meeting, that the two countries can reopen their military-to-military ties, their contact between their two militaries, because they say that is vital to prevent any kind of conflict from accidentally occurring due to a miscommunication. And those ties have been severed ever since the former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, the US Speaker of the House, traveled to Taiwan. And at that point, it angered China so much. That's a democratically run island that China claims is Chinese. That angered China so much that they severed military-to-military ties. So that will be a key positive outcome for the Biden administration if that occurs. They are also talking about agreements over fentanyl, trying to put curbs on the precursor drugs that China exports to the US illegally, but those are then used to make fentanyl, this very powerful opioid which is killing many Americans. And areas they can find over climate change. They are the two biggest emitters in the world, and they say they need to lead by example.
Yeah. Kate, finally now, how significant is this meeting between the two leaders, particularly from China's perspective? We know that US has been very upfront about its commitment to its allies in Indo-Pacific scheme of things. Then there is China pressure against the democratically governed Taiwan, which China claims is its own. And in the South and East China Seas, they have their own issues.
Yeah, that's right. There is an entire list of issues between the US and China. You named several there that mean that this conversation is very, there's a tightrope that has to be walked here. The US has many issues with China, like what it's doing in the South China Sea, claiming territory that other countries also claim their own. Its relationship with North Korea, its issues of human rights. So there are lots of awkward conversations for Joe Biden to have. He'll also be talking about foreign policy. Yes, he has always said that the rise of China and the Indo-Pacific is his top foreign policy objective while he's president, but he hasn't been able to spend that much time on it because of problems. We've got the land war in Europe and then the issues in the Middle East right now. So he will be talking to President Xi Jinping about those as well, particularly to try to urge him not to use his contacts with Iran to see the conflict in the Middle East expanding into other countries.
Right. Many thanks, Kate, for joining us live from Washington, D.C. and putting this story in larger perspective. And still to come on DD India News Hour, this is what we have for you on the other side. Coming up next, Russia intensifies airstrikes on Ukrainian cities. UK top court says the country's Rwanda deportation policy is unlawful. Also, the Indian Air Force's Sarang helicopter display team captivates audiences at the Dubai Air Show 2023 with their acrobatics, aerobatics and precision flying. You're watching DD India's News Hour live from New Delhi. I'm Sakal Bhatt. Let's move on to the other big story on the show. Ukraine has claimed that its troops have pushed back Russian forces along Dnipro River, while Russia has renewed attacks on some Ukrainian cities. One person was reportedly killed in overnight missile strike in eastern Ukraine. Here's a report.
As Russia-Ukraine war has intensified, the blame game continues. On the one hand, at least one person was killed and 5 others injured in an overnight missile strike that hit an apartment building in eastern Ukraine. On the other hand, Ukraine has claimed that its troops are trying to push back Russian forces along the Dnipro River in southern Kherson region. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has asserted that Moscow has suffered heavy losses in Avdiivka city.
Russia
is already losing soldiers and equipments under Avdiivka faster and on a large scale than, for example, under Bakhmut. The more Russian forces are destroyed near Avdiivka, the worse the overall situation will be for the enemy for the course of the war.
Ukraine braces itself for a second full winter of Russian attacks on energy facilities. Air defense units use all available resources to bolster their efficacy. Ukraine is banking on newer and better weapons systems to help prevent their country being plunged into darkness again. Air defense units make use of all that is available, including guns and systems dating back to the Soviet era. Shagnik Chakraborty for DD India.
And now let's get you some updates from the Israel-Hamas conflict, where Israeli forces have carried out an operation against Hamas in Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza City, the largest medical complex in the Strip, where thousands have taken shelter, reportedly. The Israeli military has urged all members of the terror group in the hospital to surrender. More in this report.
The Israeli military conducted raids in self-defense against Hamas at Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital on Wednesday. Israel believes that Hamas has a command center underneath Al-Shifa hospital, the biggest in Gaza, and uses the hospital and tunnels underneath to conceal military operations and to hold hostages. IDF stated that Hamas uses hospitals for terrorism instead of treating the ill, and this sick exploitation of the Gazan people must be stopped.
Hamas sees ill Gazans as an opportunity to put the most vulnerable in the line of fire. Just last week, in the Rantisi hospital, Ahmed Siam, a company commander in the Hamas, was conducting terrorism from within the hospital while holding 1,000 patients, medical staff, and innocent people as hostages. Ahmed Siam knew by preventing their evacuation, they were shielding him. We know that Hamas has done this for years.
IDF forces included medical teams and Arabic speakers who have undergone specified training to prepare for the hospital raid with the intent that no harm is caused to the civilians being used by Hamas as human shields. United States supported the safe evacuation of patients at Gaza hospitals, asserting that Hamas should stop using hospitals as a command post.
We don't want to see any civilians, and certainly not babies in incubators or other vulnerable populations, caught in a crossfire. We want Hamas to stop using hospitals as a command post. That would be the easiest way to solve this problem, if they would stop using the civilians that are in hospitals as humanitarian shields.
The World Health Organization has acknowledged the challenges faced by Al-Shifa hospital staff in caring for patients amid turbulent times.
Everyone in that hospital is in a really, really dire situation. All their lives are so threatened. So we as the world have to find a way to help them. The best way would be to stop the hostilities right now, focus on saving lives, not taking lives.
Meanwhile, on Tuesday, Israeli army released footage of what it said were its soldiers carrying out military operations and dismantling Hamas centers and capabilities it has built over the years in Gaza's Al-Shati.
In other news, the UK Supreme Court ruled on Wednesday that the government's scheme to send asylum seekers to Rwanda was unlawful. We have more. In fact, the court unanimously rejected the government's appeal against an earlier ruling that migrants could not be sent to Rwanda because it could not be considered a safe third country. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said the government has already been working on a new treaty with Rwanda and could change the country's laws. The Rwanda scheme is the central plank of Sunak's immigration policy as he prepares to face an election next year.
But let me say this again, if it becomes clear that our domestic legal frameworks or international conventions are still frustrating plans at that point, I am prepared to change our laws and revisit those international relationships. The British people expect us to do whatever it takes to stop the boats, and that is precisely what this government will deliver.
DD India's Julia Champman has sent us this report.
It certainly does make things more difficult for the Prime Minister. This was one of his central policies, cracking down on unofficial migration, specifically the crossings over the English Channel of refugees in small boats. The government claimed that this policy would have deterred people from attempting that dangerous journey, something that migrant charities have rejected would have been the case. But now the government says it is looking at alternatives after the top court ruled this policy in its current form was unlawful, deeming Rwanda to be an unsafe country because of the risk, it said, of people being sent back to their country of origin, places that they were fleeing on fears of being persecuted. So certainly a pretty damning conclusion from the court, but the government says that they are looking at revising that agreement with Rwanda in order to address some of the justice's concerns. The Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly, saying just now that they are considering turning that memorandum of understanding into a more binding treaty, although it is difficult to see how that will address some of the issues that the justices were pointing to, the fears over the lack of independence of the judiciary, accusations that there have been extrajudicial killings carried out in Rwanda, and accusations as well that there is a prejudice against immigrants coming from certain countries that could affect the way that Rwanda processes asylum claims. This is a big political issue in the UK, one the government has vowed to crack down on, but undoubtedly this will be a setback for the government of Rishi Sunak as he's expected to have to call an election in the next year.
Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Centre visited the Sharjah Research Technology and Innovation Park in Sharjah in UAE. The delegation, composed of Indian space startups and industry experts, discussed the latest space sector reforms, innovative science and technology initiatives, and expressed eagerness for collaborative ventures in the space sector. The delegation also explored the Indian Pavilion at the Dubai Air Show, further fostering international partnerships. The Indian Air Force's Sarang helicopter display team captivated audiences at the Dubai Air Show 2023 with their aerobatics and precision flying. The team, flying 4 HAL Dhruv helicopters, performed a variety of maneuvers, including loops and rolls and inverted flight. They also formed intricate formations and displayed their skills at low-level flying. The Sarang team is one of the world's premier helicopter display teams, and the performance at the Dubai Air Show is a testament to their skill and professionalism. The team's performance was met with enthusiastic applause from the crowd, and many spectators took to social media to praise their display. During the second day of the three-day Global Media Congress held in Abu Dhabi, media pioneers and forward thinkers worldwide engaged in thought-provoking discussions encompassing digital communication, artificial intelligence and creative aspects of the media. The agenda spanned broader sessions covering print journalism, radio, streaming and influence of the global figures, with over 15,000 attendees. The spotlight was on the keynote address delivered by Umar Sultan Al Ulama, the UAE's Minister of State for Artificial Intelligence.
The media sector is going to be one of the biggest benefactors of artificial intelligence around the world. The fact that today we're able to actually produce content at a much higher effective scale than we were able to do in the past. We're able to tailor it to the customer directly or to the reader directly, and we're able to translate it in any language in the world in the highest degree of accuracy, ensures that media entities are going to be able to distribute their content even more widespread. There is a fundamental need for the media outlets of the world to actually focus on being an accredited, trusted source for true information.
And the second edition of the Global Media Congress commenced on Tuesday at Abu Dhabi National Exhibition Centre in UAE. DD India correspondent Vinod Kumar speaks to renowned French expert in artificial intelligence implementation and Amazon Web Services Sébastien Lempel on prospects, challenges and the roadmap for integrating artificial intelligence into the contemporary newsroom ecosystem.
We have with us Mr. Sébastien Lempel, who is an Amazon Web Services expert and who also works in Newsbridge, a company which specializes in implementing AI in newsrooms. Welcome, Mr. Sébastien. This is the year 2023 and AI is everywhere. It's all pervasive. So what are the advantages and challenges while implementing artificial intelligence in newsrooms, especially regarding its workflows?
Challenges of any newsroom is mainly to teach the AI of its own expertise and region. In India, for example, you will need to teach the AI on how an Indian journalist of this specific region is actually doing a story or is actually telling a story. So machine learning is one challenge. Implementation is a challenge as well on the connectivity part. And then there is as well some adoption of AI. At first, the journalists and all the editors and they see the AI as an enemy, as a threat. But after adopting, after testing it and after using it, they realize that actually this is a tool that can make their life easier. At the end, it's really a long path and a learning journey for all of us.
You have seen a technology called deepfake, which might have been created for good users, but now it's being used for negative outcomes. So how the world will overcome the negative uses of these deepfakes, and as journalists, how the media can counter it?
You have two ways. Either you build a tool that detects what AI did, an AI tool, what detects that another AI did, and you say, okay, this is fake news, so creating a tool. Or again, you put regulation. One regulation could be like everything that the AI creates, you have a clear sign that is made with AI.
With the advent of AI, definitely our world is changing. The story of deepfakes, the story and challenges, what it poses to human civilization has definitely to be tackled. And we can expect that the media of the current century will be mature enough to do it, and will use artificial intelligence to our advantage and not to our disadvantage.
All right, still to come on DD India News Hour. Coming up next. The 2023 edition of Indo-Pacific Regional Dialogue is being held in India's national capital, New Delhi. ASEAN defense chiefs call for end to Myanmar crises and Israel-Hamas conflict. Also coming up next, IMF head expects agreement with Pakistan this week.
Always welcoming. The vibe of Punjab is larger than life. Warm up to grandeur that's beyond compare. And history that's dotted with tales of bravery. Smiling soul of India, where music, art, cuisine and culture comes together to create an unforgettable impression. Punjab is all set to win your hearts with its unique and colorful extravaganza.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Sakal Bhatt. Let's move on. Presidents of US and China are holding talks on trade, Taiwan and fraught relations. Biden-Xi Jinping meeting on sidelines of APEC Summit. Israeli forces carry out operations in self-defense against Hamas in Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital. UN fuel shipment enters the enclave from Egypt. ASEAN defense chiefs meet in Jakarta. They call for end to Myanmar crises and Israel-Hamas conflict. And now we are joined by Dr. Anshu Joshi of the School of International Studies in Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi, joining us to discuss about the broader construct of the Indo-Pacific, of the APEC, and most importantly, the expectations, Anshu, that are building up as far as the much anticipated Xi Jinping-Biden meeting is concerned. And very interesting, stand, if I may be allowed to use the word, or perhaps the statements that are coming up from the White House and Mr. Joe Biden himself, that he's categorically said that US is not looking at decoupling the relationship, rather changing the relationship. But at the same time, both sides are maintaining in some way or the other that there should not be much expected out of it. Your opening remarks, how critical are the timings when the two leaders meet?
Well, it is going to be the first bilateral meet between Xi and Biden in last 6 years. The timing is critical. You are absolutely right. When we look around ourselves and when we look at the present geopolitical situation and especially the challenges, we see that Russia-Ukraine war is not stopping. On the other hand, we do see ongoing violent conflict between Israel and Hamas. We also see a possible theater of conflict in Indo-Pacific region. And amid all this, we also see the internal challenges that Xi is facing in China. So there is a deep economic setback that China is facing presently. And we do see how MNCs are shutting down in China. Every day we hear or we read the news about one or the other MNC closing its operations in China. China is also facing a deficit in terms of foreign investments. On the other hand, when we look at United States of America, it has already entered into the phase of its presidential elections, and it's a long process. It is going on. So amid all this, when we see that both the leaders are meeting, indeed it is critical from and important from global as well as their national point of view. China has a lot of challenges to resolve at the moment. Biden also has certain prioritized objectives to look at, and then entire world has a list of items to be discussed. So Sakal, I will not say that some miraculous results will come out of this meet, but at least the ice is melting and at least the two leaders will talk.
Ice is melting, two leaders will talk, but are we also looking at this in a larger contour of relationship, US and China, a sort of, or some sort of reset?
If we look back at the recent developments, and if we try to see, analyze how both the nations have come to this particular point of worsened relations, I would say that at this very juncture, a new chapter of relation, I don't see that getting opened. And I also don't keep big hopes from this talk when we look at the bilateral relationship between India and the United States of America. See, both the nations have their own perceptions and beliefs about each other. And those perceptions are not going to change overnight or just after this talk. But at this very moment, we should also see that at least now they will be speaking. So at least that re-establishment of communication, we'll be able to see that. So from that angle, this talk is going to be important.
Many experts also believe that this sort of improvement in the mood, because Washington has sent out very positive signals, so to say, talking about re-establishing military contacts and communication, military ties with China. But this could be a temporary sort of a situation.
Indeed, and we must also not forget that each and every leader, each and every nation has certain objectives, national interests, and their first and foremost goal is to secure those national interests. And as we see that Xi has many challenges, he has a laundry list of issues that he is facing at his home front. And these issues belong to political and economic and social different areas. At the same time, we do see Biden now looking at the upcoming presidential elections of United States of America. And at the same time, Indo-Pacific is a common objective of concern for and priority for both the nations. Having said that, there are other issues as well of global in nature, and they will also play a major role in setting the tone and result of this talk.
Before we go to the issues that are global in nature and the balance of power and what is happening in Israel-Hamas and then Russia-Ukraine and all of that. China, you spoke about the 2024 elections that Biden is looking at. And then China has also its own issues to deal with when it comes to Taiwan, which it claims to be democratically elected and, that it is its own. So difficult for both leaders, like some uncomfortable, difficult conversations, or they will try to just navigate through these issues which are not very comfortable for both of them?
I think there would be a situation like this, because if at all the matter of Taiwan would be discussed, I don't think that both the leaders will be in a comfort zone while talking to each other. Though United States of America always talks about this one China policy, it believes in it, and that actually goes with what China says in context of Taiwan. There we see a paradox in the policy of United States of America towards Taiwan. But practically we see that how US states stands in support with Taiwan. And this particular issue of Taiwan also is of global in nature, because it actually impacts the whole balance of power in the Indo-Pacific region. So if at all this kind of issue will be discussed, the leaders would not be in a very comfortable situation. For that matter, if at all Russia-Ukraine war would be discussed, the leaders may have difference in opinion. And coming to the another domain that pertaining to economy, there, so I think there would be some differences. So there would be differences, and that is what all the experts are speculating. But the good thing is that at least they would be sitting in front of each other and they would be talking to each other instead of a war of statements that both of them have been doing for past couple of months or years.
Right. It'll be very interesting to see, Anshu, what's going to be really the outcome of this meeting when we have the statements issued from both sides, despite the history of traditional rivalry, the issues that you talked about in terms of divergences, or if at all they will converge on some. Meanwhile, that's all we have time for. Many thanks, Anshu. It was such a pleasure talking to you as always. Thank you. And the 2023 edition of the Indo-Pacific Regional Dialogue is being held in India's national capital, New Delhi. This year, the focus was on the geopolitical impacts of on Indo-Pacific maritime trade and connectivity. The term Indo-Pacific is gaining a lot of currency these days, a sort of shift in America's Asia strategy to rebalance regional players. This is something that has made India a crucial player or a crucial partner in the region, and India has made huge investments in the recent past.
With 2.4 million square kilometers of exclusive economic zone, and this zone has huge potential, and any potential exploitation comes with challenges. India has serious stake in the peace, prosperity, and stability of Indo-Pacific region to ensure maritime trade and security. Forging and convergence of all stakeholders to secure a stable and prosperous future in the vibrant landscape of the Indo-Pacific by ensuring peace.
Towards this end, I am pleased to find that various chambers of commerce and industry are also taking initiatives to build synergies across the Indo-Pacific as a whole. The recent initiative of 8 chambers of Indo-Pacific countries that have agreed to work together under a common platform, the Association of Indo-Pacific Chambers of Commerce, aimed at boosting trade and commerce across the region, is worthy of mention, as such cooperative and collaborative mechanisms within the private sector of the region's economies hold out a great deal of promise.
While the Indo-Pacific has become geopolitically contested space, India's role as a security partner is also gaining a lot of traction. DD India's Jessica Taneja spoke with Dr. Walter C. Lodwig, who is a political scientist and specializes in the geopolitics of the Indo-Pacific. Here's what he has to say.
We have with us Dr. Walter Ladwig. He is senior lecturer at King's College London. Thank you for speaking to DD India, Dr. Ladwig. There are other initiatives which are trying to counter the Belt and Road Initiative. We've seen the one that has been forwarded by Europe as well, and of course the APEC that is in its initial stage. There are other various initiatives to counter China, or to balance China, let's put it that way. How have those been shaping up, and what more needs to be done to, in fact, look at and how to respond to China's debt trap diplomacy?
A lot of these initiatives you discuss, whether they're the mega infrastructure corridor projects, whether they're the G7 projects, whether they're the Quad infrastructure projects, all implicitly or explicitly have the idea behind them that you can compete with China on transparency. You can compete with China on accountability. You can compete with China on quality.
Taking from the recent developments in Papua New Guinea, with vis-a-vis the Solomon Islands, and how America, along with the Indian Prime Minister present there, spoke to the other Pacific Island countries, and soon Papua New Guinea, we saw the favorable decision fall, in our favor, I would say that. How important a strategic role does India play apart from this, the bipolar world that we're stuck in? Do you see India emerge in that multipolar world as playing a key role, perhaps?
Look, India has been talked about for the last 2 decades as being a key swing state in international politics, and this is an area that gives sort of a tangible example of that. India has historical relationships, there are cultural ties and linkages with sort of key Pacific Island nations and populations, and it's able to leverage that in important ways. In this case, delivering, I think what we would see as a win or a favorable result for states that are friendly with India, and helping to sort of isolate and contain new areas of encroachment by China.
ASEAN defense ministers have called for an end to the Myanmar crisis and Israel-Hamas conflict as they gather in Jakarta for talks that will include meetings with regional counterparts and the Pentagon chief. In fact, in a joint declaration, the ASEAN defense chiefs also urged all parties in Myanmar, where fighting has been raging across the northern Shan state for weeks, to cease all violence and exercise utmost restraint.
We are saddened with the deteriorating situation in Myanmar. Indonesia, as chair of ASEAN, continues to push for concrete progress towards a peaceful solution. Indonesia will continue to support Myanmar's efforts to bring peace, stability, and the rule of law, as well as promote harmony and reconciliation. Indonesia encourages other ASEAN member states to support Myanmar to find a peaceful and durable solution to the current situation.
IMF's managing director has said that she expects an agreement with Pakistan this week on targets for the first review of a $3 billion bailout. Now, tax collection is the primary issue for Pakistan. Kristalina Georgieva says in an interview with the IMF, asking Islamabad to boost tax collections to at least 15% of the GDP from the current 12%. Let's take a look at now the other stories that are making headlines. A bus accident in India's Jammu and Kashmir has killed at least 36 people. The bus carrying around 40 passengers skidded on the Batot-Kishtwar National Highway in Doda district into a 300-foot gorge. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has expressed grief over the loss of lives and has announced an ex gratia of 2 lakh rupees to the kin of the victims. In northern Indian state of Uttarakhand, efforts are underway to rescue 40 workers trapped in under-construction tunnel. An escape tunnel has been prepared through the debris, and a second auger drilling machine has been brought to the Uttarkashi collapse site. 2 teams of National Disaster Response Force are also present on the ground. Workers were trapped on Sunday. We're going to slip it to a short break. We'll be back with more. Stay with us.
Welcome to Jaipur.
Thanks for staying with us. You're watching DD India's News Hour. I'm Sakal Bhatt. The 12th parliamentary elections in Bangladesh will be held on January 7th next year. The Chief Election Commissioner of Bangladesh announced the polls scheduled on Wednesday in Dhaka. In a televised address, the Chief Election Commissioner urged all political parties to join the election and assured of taking all necessary measures to ensure a free and fair polls. Announcement came amid deadly protests by opposition parties demanding the resignation of ruling Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. The European Union has reached a deal on Wednesday on a law to place methane emissions limits on Europe's oil and gas imports from 2030. pressurizing international suppliers to clamp down on leaks of the potent greenhouse gas. Rapid cuts in methane emissions this decade are crucial if the world is to avoid severe climate change. After all-night talks, negotiations from EU member states and the European Parliament have agreed to impose maximum methane intensity values by 2030 on producers abroad, sending fossil fuels into Europe. The Council of the EU, which represents member states, according to the statement. India International Trade Fair in Delhi is showcasing India as a global business and investment destination for international traders. DD India's correspondent Kriti Vadera has more.
India International Trade Fair has started with the theme of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, united by trade, emphasizing global unity through commerce. Young entrepreneurs across the globe see a huge scope in the Indian market for trade.
I'm glad that you guys here today, and we are glad that India is a place that we can trade our dry fruits, our thoughts, and our culture. So that's a very good idea of these people, that they have bring many countries together and they are sharing their thoughts, their structure of life, their way of how they live. So that's all come too good, and I am, especially me, actually, I am feeling too much proud to be here right now.
Feels actually really good. The expo, the exhibitions, they're really crowded. They're the best. The sellings, the marketing, the people, the attraction we get, the affection the customers show to us, to our products, is really good.
We are coming from Turkey for mosaic lamps and ceramic. We are bringing for decoration. We are so happy for come to for India International Trade Fair.
I feel very pleasure to be with my dad, to be with my dad in this business, and I feel very pleasure to be in India. It's my third time that I have traveled to the India, and we have varieties types of products, like we have the Rudraks, we have the Saligrams.
International exhibitors feel proud to be part of such huge event.
This is my first time in India, and I see the first moment we opened the shop. We haven't finished decorated, but too many people here and full of our shop, and they really love buying a lot. And we're very happy that we can offer you the very good quality products to India, and you guys like it. So I'm so impressed.
Keeping in mind the diversity of India, India appears to be the favorite destination of international traders, and this time India International Trade appears to be really special for all the customers who are visiting it, not just because of the 3,500 exhibition stalls here, but with the new fresh look of Pragati Maidan as well. With camera person Radhe Krishna, I'm Kriti Vadera reporting from New Delhi for DD India.
Kenya hosts talks to create a binding agreement to tackle global plastic pollution. Now, stakeholders want all producing nations to be heavily involved. Deadline for the treaty is March 2024, with slow progress raising concerns. DD India's Isabel Nakiria reports from Kampala.
It will be the first legally binding treaty to reduce plastic pollution, which environment campaigners warn could double in the next 20 years. Last year, more than 170 countries agreed to have a UN treaty to combat plastic pollution. Leaders of the global plastic industry are advocating for greater recycling to solve the plastic waste crisis, while environment groups are calling this position distractive from the real solutions to produce less plastic. Less than 10% of plastic waste is recycled, and millions of tons of plastic products are tossed each year or improperly burned. Some plastic industry manufacturers say the document should take into consideration developing countries that benefit from plastic. Less developed countries may find the transition harder, worried the pact may affect their economies still earning from production of plastic. There is concern that time is running out to reach a real deal with the deadline set for March 2024. But with 400 million tons of plastic waste produced each year, global leaders are concerned that progress to come up with a treaty is slow. The meeting ends on Sunday, and delegates hope to make considerable headway by then. Isabel Nakiria in Kampala, reporting for DD India.
Bhai Tika, or a festival of brothers and sisters, is being celebrated across Nepal. In this festival, sisters wish long life, health and wealth for their brothers by putting a tika on their forehead, and brothers also offer gifts to their sisters, which is believed to bring good luck and prosperity.
Bhai Tika, which is celebrated on the last day of the 5-day-long Tihar festival, is being observed across Nepal today. Bhai Tika is also known as Yam Ditya, in which sisters wish for long life, health and wealth for their brothers by putting Saptarangi Tika on the forehead as per traditions. After several rituals, brothers offer tika and gifts to their sister, which is believed to bring good luck and prosperity. Following the rituals and social tradition, sisters give their brother food packets including dry fruits and sail roti after applying tika, while brothers show their respect by offering gift to the sisters as symbol of good fortune. Meanwhile, in Kathmandu Valley, collective Bhai Tika was organized in a few places, including Kasht Mandap in Basantapur Square. The temple of Bal Gopaleshwar in the middle of Rani Pokhri has been opened for those who cannot reach their family for Bhai Tika or do not have sisters or brothers. Those who don't have sisters and brothers go to this temple and perform puja and receive Tika. Shweta Singh for DD India, Kathmandu.
On to ICC Cricket World Cup, where Team India is taking on New Zealand in the first semi-final at the Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai. Well, as of now, New Zealand is fighting the battle in its bid for a record chase of mammoth 398 runs target set by India. Dale Mitchell has scored a century and is currently at the crease with... Yes, Mitchell, in fact, after an impressive knock, returned to pavilion with Glenn Flip, with Capman soon to follow. Glenn Phillips is holding the Kiwis inning. The match is getting pretty intense, where Kiwis, as of now, as we speak, need 100+ runs with 7 overs to go, more than 7 overs to go. New Zealand are already down 5 wickets. Well, certainly this particular match has all the markings of a very, very interesting, nail-biting finish. In fact, earlier centuries by Virat Kohli and Shreyas Iyer powered India to a giant score of 397 for the loss of 4 wickets. Virat Kohli broke Sachin Tendulkar's record of 49 centuries in ODIs, as well as Tendulkar's all-time record for most runs in the single edition of World Cup. Shreyas also scored his 5th ton, while Shubham Gill remained unbeaten on 80. Well, that's it we have for you in this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, you can connect with us on X, formerly known as Twitter, and you can connect with us on Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks only here on DD India. I'm Sakal Bhatt signing off with my team and from all of us here in New Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.